So, let's break apart the question. Evaluate the extent to which ongoing cross-cultural interactions affected trade and or exploration during the period 1450 to 1750. So, what's our topic? Sure, trade. Should we put this too? Or should we just go with trade? Or should we go with exploration? Both. Okay. All right. Trade, exploration. I'm just going to put cultural connection. Because remember, I don't want to write too much. I don't want to go crazy. But I do want to plan. What's my time period? So you can put the actual times, or you could also write like unit 3 and 4. Because by the time we get to the end of our course next year and we're practicing doing LEQs for our exam, we might just remember our units better and what the theme of each unit was. But either way is fine. Where? Yeah, global, very good. Because it doesn't say a specific region. It doesn't say Afro-Eurasia like the last one, or the Americas, right? What's our skill? Causation. So I see affected here. Affect is a verb, right? It's almost like you're saying influence. I like to put it in my own words. Effect is a noun, and that usually is something that, like, actually happened afterwards. All right, so what is this question asking? Because I have to evaluate the extent to which something is happening. So I want to change this into my speak, which may not necessarily be the same way that you guys speak, because I can't always keep up with all of your skitty-rizzing and whatever. But you don't talk like that anyway, right? So evaluate the extent to which just means how much. I kind of want to like ask a question, even though it's giving me a prompt. I want to say to myself, I have to answer the question, how much did what? Did cross-cultural connections influence trade? I am going to put and or because I don't know which one I want to do. Or maybe I could do both. But do I have to do both? No. Well, maybe I want to. So we'll see how it goes. And as you get better and better at this, after we practice, you may not need to actually write all of this down. It may just become, clockwork to you, but we're going to go through it step by step because, we're all at different places in our writing. Some of you are, really amazing writers. Some of you are struggling writers, and that's okay. Like, own it and kind of, like, just meet yourself where you're at. Because if you're like, all right, I can go past this, feel free to do so. But if you need some kind of like a skeleton format, then use this because this is a really good place to just, make sure that you are getting the points on the page. Because it's a time crunch, and that's a difficult thing. So, now our next step is we need to come up with some ideas of what we could write about to talk about this topic. So what could be some ideas for, we have to put in our thesis, lines of reasoning, and then we'll, create our umbrella claim and then put that together to make a thesis. So what were some of the cross-cultural connections that were influencing trade or exploration that we learned about? Sadie, start us off.
I was going to say how different route to get to India and then they discovered America.
Ah, okay. So why did they need to find a different route to India? What were they trying to get from India? Spices, yeah. Okay, so let's use that. So maybe one of the reasons why we have cross-cultural connections that influence trade was the demand for spices from India. Awesome. Because that's a cross-cultural connection. Europeans wanting a food product from India. That's cross-cultural. Awesome. Okay. How did they do that exploration? How did the Portuguese and the Spanish, go across and, discover, air quote, America or get around Africa? By boat. Where did they learn boat building technology from? Who created dhows? Because that was IOTB. Who were the merchants that were controlling that trade? Okay, Muslims. Yeah. And who had those, who was that explorer that had those huge junk ships? That guy. That guy. Maybe we don't remember that guy, and that's okay. You won't remember everything on your AP exam, but maybe you remember junk ships. Jean maybe? Possibly? So where was he from? China. Okay, so why don't we just, even if we don't remember the name of the guy, because, maybe that escapes us today on our exam. So maybe technology from Arab and Chinese. Right? That cross-cultural interaction led to more trade and exploration because now they could get there and they knew how to get there. I mean, there's probably more to this, like, astrolabes, like, we could add to that, right? All right. Once Europeans started exploring and trading, were there any other cross-cultural connections that continued or made that trade increase or decrease either? What were we debating last week? Oh, what? The Columbian Exchange. Yeah, very good. So I mean, I think even though we're thinking before the Columbian Exchange, that initial encounter, yeah, it's in Unit 4. Yeah, okay. Absolutely, 1492. That definitely, I think, even, kept spurring on more. All right, so now that we have some ideas for reasons why cross-cultural interactions influence trade and exploration, now we have to create our umbrella claim. So would you say that these reasons greatly, somewhat, or minimally, significantly, a lot, however you want to call it, was there a lot of cross-cultural connections that influenced trade and exploration? Somewhat, meh, a few, or was it really not there and we can kind of focus on the counter argument to that? What do we want to go with? A lot, somewhat, a little? Okay, so circle significantly, don't make it harder than it needs to be. And we've kind of been focusing on which one, increase or decrease? Increase. But sometimes if you have an effect prompt, it might be that, something decreased greatly, or something, somewhat decreased, but something else increased, so it could go either way. So what's step 4? Write your full thesis with your umbrella claim and lines of reasoning on your outline, then continue planning the rest of your essay. So let's hop over to our outline. Honestly, you guys are doing so well. I'd say let's, get our thesis down, and then if you want to brainstorm a few other ideas, then call it a day. Because I mean, this was a brain drain. I get it. I can see. I can see. Yeah. I can see you need a bit of a break. All right, got it. So, what's our umbrella plan? I mean, obviously I have room here for you to brainstorm. And we're going to skip our contextualization to start with. Because again, in your introduction, you want to have your thesis and what led to your thesis. But let's make sure we have our claim, because that is the whole purpose of our paper of what we have to prove in this essay. So what's our umbrella claim? We gotta take what we have over here. We said, what significantly increased what? So how do we create our umbrella? We have to answer this question, which was basically how we, address this prompt. So let's take this, and just like you do on any kind of a, homework question, restate it in your answer. So cross-cultural connections, how much? Raw. Okay, there we go. Cross-cultural connections. Do we want to go with significantly, or do we like greatly better? Magnificently.
I feel like greatly sounds like a fake word.
Okay. So let's just go significantly. And remember, the day of the exam, because you're going to be nervous and rushing, you're going to be stupider, in air quotes. So if it doesn't come out like an eloquent piece of poetry, it's okay. You can just use greatly or a lot if you absolutely need to default to that. It's really okay. Cross-cultural connections significantly increased. Increase what? Do we want to go with trade and exploration? Do you think that gives us some more options of what to talk about in our essay? Or should we just stick with what? Okay. All right. Or your lines of reasoning can be your paragraphs too. Because that's usually how I like to, I'm going to prove this reason, I'm going to prove this reason in my two-body paragraph, okay? But you do have wiggle room when you put and. You can always go back and change it, later on as well. All right, so what created this significant increase? What were our lines of reasoning? Should I put European demand for spices from India? Okay. See, this is why we're planning, because sometimes it doesn't come out perfectly the first time when you think about it. That's okay. Thinking is a messy process. That's why God invented erasers, right? You don't have to be perfect. Remember that, darlings. You don't. European demand for spices from India. Sharing, should we say boat technology, navigation technology, just technology, navigation, okay. Sharing navigation technology. And the what exchange? And the Colombian exchange So those are my lines of reasoning. I'm gonna do it, Sadie, sorry. Greatly affected, because that way I know that the reader knows I'm going back to the prompt. Even though I have significantly increased here. Or should I put influenced instead of affected? Would it matter?
Probably not.
Probably not, because either way that should be a signal to the reader that you're doing affect here. Absolutely. Love that. So again, feel free to deviate. Had a massive impact. I love that. I go for it. Can I use that? Do you mind? Had a massive impact on global trade from 1450 to 1750. I like to put the time period there just to remind myself, oh yeah, make sure you're talking about the right time period. Because we don't want to be talking about, you know, like Amazon global trade right now. However, to show that you understand the complexity point, could you show as a long-term effect that this was the first step in many phases of getting to the global exchange that we have today? Maybe when we learn a little bit more about how all of that happened, you could do that in a couple of sentences. But that's what I mean about, you know, making sure you prove the point and then showing the complexity of, oh yeah, this is, you know, long term down the line, how this happened in what we have today. Okay. Good? So again, just to kind of go back to what Peyton said, for your first body paragraph, I would probably have my topic as demand for spices. And since I like to do 2 body paragraphs, I don't know, would we put Columbian Exchange in with demand for spices, or would we put Columbian Exchange, if I'm going to like combine 2 of my 3, in with navigation technology? Okay, all right. So technology and Columbian Exchange. So just remember, your lines of reasoning become the topics of your body paragraphs. Because that's what you have to prove to have reasons for your umbrella claim. These are the reasons that your umbrella claim is true, and you prove that in your body paragraphs. First, you focus on this, then you focus on that. Okay? So we'll continue on with that tomorrow. You did great today. Plenty. All right. Good job.